Hello everyone and welcome to this exciting video. So what I'll do is I'll try to walk you through how to compromise or exploit a retired free machine on HackTheBox. You can see here we are on the HackTheBox platform. The machine is retired and the name of the machine is Builder. It's a Linux medium difficulty machine. We have two modes. We have the adventure mode and then the guided mode. I think the guided mode has recently been introduced where you'll be able to get some hints and tips on how to go about exploitation. But previously it was just the adventure mode where you have to do everything by yourself, do all the research on how to actually compromise the machines. So here to start with, we have our IP address. So this is the target that we're going to be trying to exploit. So the IP is 10.10.11.10, and then let's copy the IP address. And first of all, we have to make sure that we can reach this IP address. What I did initially, I've already done my initial setup. I have connected to the VPN. So if you check here, the VPN is initialized. I'm sure in my previous videos I've already shown how you can set up your VPN connection. It's not part of this video. Yeah, so let's see. We're just trying to ping and make sure that we have connectivity to the target machine. So yeah, we have ICMP responses, so this clearly shows that we can reach the machine. So once we can reach the machine, what we'll do next is try to scan for open ports and services. That will be interesting to have a look and then possibly see if we can exploit those open ports and services. So we'll do an mmap scan. So this is the mmap commands that we're going to use. -scv on. Want to save the output of the mmap command to a file called called nmap scan, and then we're gonna skip host discovery with this particular switch, and then we'll need a verbose output, and then we can just pop in our IP address, and yeah, that should be it. So we can see that the ports are coming back. We have port 22 open. Sorry, let me answer this call. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Yeah, so we have our nmap scan done. So we have two ports open, port 22, which is SSH, and then we also have port 8080, which is an HTTP. So port 8080 mostly an HTTP proxy server. So what we're gonna do is let's try to see what we have on port 8080. So we go to HTTP 10.10.11.10, and then the port is 8080. Yeah, so we are greeted with the Jenkins dashboard. So if you've never heard about Jenkins, Jenkins is an open source automation server. So it helps in the software development process. It helps to automate some of the processes like building, testing, and deployment. So it actually facilitates the CI/CD pipeline, so like the continuous integration and continuous deployment or delivery. It facilitates that. It makes it quicker, so you'll be able to get your software developed very, very quick, and then in an automated version. So basically that's mostly what Jenkins is used for. So we just try to pop around. So mostly when you are trying to exploit a system, that's what you do. You look around. So we have people, try to see if we can see some people. So we see a user by name Jennifer. This will come handy later on. We go to build history, and At this time, we're not actually going to see much from here because we are not authenticated. You see that we have a login button here that we need to log in, put in our credentials, username and password, obviously, but we don't have that now, so we're not going to see much from here. So what we can still get is trying to look around, and then we can see a particular version of Jenkins which is deployed. So this is the Jenkins 2.441. This machine, I've already solved this machine before, so I know that this particular version of Jenkins is vulnerable to an exploit. So we can try to research that. So we can say we can search for Jenkins 2.441 exploit. Is that the right version? Is it 2.441? Yeah, so yeah, that's right. So Jenkins 2.441. So we have, this is the CVE. We have CVEs. It's a recent CVE, which is 2024, with a CVE number of 23897, and then it's an arbitrary file read vulnerability. So this arbitrary file read, you can train it, and then you should be able to get remote code execution on the Jenkins server. So this is an interesting exploit. So this machine was actually built around that particular CVE to demonstrate or to do a proof of concept of how the vulnerability can be exploited. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And then since we have this we know there's a vulnerability, we can actually read around all this to get detailed information about how the vulnerability works, or how, what was vulnerable and how it can be exploited. I have done this research before already. I've read around, so you can also give it a read. And then I came across a very good exploit on GitHub. So that's the exploit we're going to use to actually exploit this machine. So I'm gonna search that exploit. Okay, so I'll need to search for that CVE. This CVE GitHub. I think the GitHub, the repo owner was got the logs or something. I'm not so sure. Let's see. Yes, so this particular GitHub repo, this was one of the working exploits. Actually, some of the exploits that I tried, or the POCs, were given partial outputs. So this is what I finally discovered, and it works pretty good. So what we need to do is basically we are trying to use this exploit to read files on the Jenkins server. That's what it means. So that's a remote arbitrary file read. That's what we're going to do. So first of all, we can clone this repo onto our local machine. So let me just clear our nmap results, and then I don't know if I need sudo to clone. Let's just say git clone. Let's clone this repo. Here we were able to clone the repo, so we can enter into the folder, and let's see what we have. So we have this particular, so this is the exploit, but we don't know how to use the exploit. So what we can do is just try to execute it. Probably it might give us the help. Yes, so we have the usage here. So what we need to do is to specify a particular URL, and then this file is the file on the remote system that we want to read. All right, so what we're gonna do, we come back again to So this time around, our URL is going to be http 10.10.11.10 with port 8080. So that's the URL where the Jenkins server is hosted, and then the file that we want to read on the remote system, just for trial sake, we'll try to read the etc passwd file. Mostly this exists on almost every Linux system. So okay, what is this? Okay, so I think our argument, we need to specify that f for the file. Let's see. So we have request timeout. What is the reason? We can try to execute it again to see. Yes, so on the second execution, we've been able to get some output. So this is the xc passwd file on the remote server. So we can see the users on the system. We have some users here. We have Jenkins. So the Jenkins this is the home directory of the Jenkins, so this is important. What we can do is we can actually save this output to a file that we can refer to later. So I'm going to use Sublime. I'll just call it notes.txt. So we need to keep some notes, very important. Yeah, so we have notes.txt. So we go back to the exploit and see, it's not just the etc passwd file that we can access. There may be some other juicy files that can give us some information. So proc self environ, proc self cmd line, and then also user account storage location. So when we come here, we'll be able to see some users that are stored on the system. So if we try to visit this particular location, this will give us some users on the system that will help in our further enumeration. So let's go back to our terminal. So this time around, instead of just trying to see the content of the etc passwd file, we try to see the users in an XML file. So here we have this output as well. I can see a user by name Jennifer. I think we saw this user on the dashboard previously, on our Jenkins dashboard, when we look at the people. So it's the same user Jennifer that we are seeing here again. So this might be an interesting find. Yeah, so what we see here, so we just have the user Jennifer, and then we have a user with an ID. So this is a user, and then the user ID Jennifer. That's not enough information. So we go back to the exploit. So from here we can be able to get a user's bcrypt password hash. So a user's hash, if we know the user, we're able to locate the user and then the user directory. So what we have here is part of a user directory on the remote file system, and then when we navigate further to a config to try to access config XML, we'll be able to possibly find hash password of that particular user, which is Jennifer. No, I think this is yeah, so the user is Jennifer that we are trying to find. So let's see. So we have the user directory here, and then we try to enumerate further. So this time around, instead of the users.xml file, we're trying to go into the user directory, and then we go to config XML to see what we have in that particular file. Yeah, so we have more information coming out from the users config XML file, and then let's see what we have. So this is the interesting part. Like we can ignore what we have at the top. We can come back to that later. But the juicy information can be seen here. So we try to copy this and have a further look at what we can find. So we can see an encrypted hash here. So bcrypt. So this is a password hash of the user Jennifer. All right, so here we only have a user and then we have an encrypted hash of the password. So we need to be able to decrypt this password hash if we can. So that's what we're going to try to do. So what we do is I'll just copy this particular hash into a file and then we'll try to use a password cracking tool to crack that. So let's see, Sublime Jen. So Jen, I'll just say Jen hash for Jennifer's password hash. That's where we're gonna store it. Then that should be it. So the password hash is stored here now. So we go back and then we try to crack it. So we can use John the Ripper. So John word list. So the word list that we're gonna use user share word list and then rocku.txt. That is the infamous rocku password file. And then we just specify our hash, which is gen hash. If everything goes right, it should be able to crack it if the password is part of our password list. Yeah, so this was pretty straightforward. It came back too quickly and early, very fast. So the password for Jennifer is princess. So now we have been able to acquire a username and a password. So let's go back to our notes and then we can try to save this. So I'll just call this credentials. So this is where I'm going to be saving my credentials. So I have my user Jennifer and then password as princess. So we have a user and a password as princess. So what we're going to do next is to try to see if we can authenticate ourselves into Jenkins dashboard or Jenkins console with this new credential that we have. So I'll come here, try to log in. So we have a username Jennifer and then the password is princess. Let's see if we have a successful login. Yes, so we're able to get a successful login. Then from here, what we do is we have a manage Jenkins option now because we are authenticated. So we're able to manage this particular Jenkins instance. So when we scan, we look around, we have so many things that we can do. But for now, we're going to be interested in the Jenkins script console. So over here, this allows us to run Groovy scripts on the remote Jenkins server. So for a test, we can try to just run this particular print to print some plugins which are installed. So if we run this, we will be able to get some results. So these are some of the plugins currently installed on the Jenkins server. So we don't stop here. So since we can run commands, it's like we have some command execution here. So what can we do? What we may want to do is try to get a reverse shell. That's what mostly attackers who want to do. They may try to get a reverse shell so that instead of coming here to run this command, they can run it on their own terminal. So we can search for Jenkins Groovy, not Jenkins, we just search for Groovy reverse shell. So let's see what we can get. So I think we have an interesting one in HackTheBox. I think I've used something like this before. Let's see how it how it looks like. Another useful Groovy script. Okay, so this is a reverse shell in Linux. So we can copy this particular reverse shell, but we have to do some modification to it. It will not work out of the box. So we have to now do our own we have to modify it to work for us. So this is the command that is going to be run to give you back the reverse shell. So the particular reverse shell command, I think, is encoded in base 64, so you're not gonna actually see it here, but we can decode it to see its content, modify it, and then re-encode it. So let's clear our screen. So if we echo and then we pipe this to base 64, like we're trying to decode what we have in that reverse shell command. Yes, so this is what it comes out to. So this is what the command they are going to run to give the reverse shell. And we can see this is their IP, and this is the port that they were listening to. So we have to now also try to modify and put in our own listening port and our listening IP. So what we can do is for here, IP A, and then we need to grab TAN 0. That's the tunnel for our VPN connection. So that's where we're going to listen from. And so this is our IP address that we're going to use to listen to. So instead of using their IP, this is our IP. And then the port we can use 4343, doesn't matter, but mostly I always use 777. That's what mostly I use. You can use whatever listening port that you want. And we are not done. So from here we need to re-encode it into base 64 before we can come and pop it here to be able to use how do you call it, to be able to use the command for the reverse shell. So let's see how we can let's see, it's base 64. I don't know if we just pop it in here, whether it will work. Let's see. So I'm just trying to encode this into base 64. So it doesn't work like that. So I'll try to echo it into, and then I'll pipe it to base 64. I hope that works. I hope this works. Yes, so we have it here. So this is the base 64 encoded. We've now encoded our payload into base 64. Come on, no. So this is our payload, so we have to replace their payload with our payload. Okay, and hope this will work out. So that's basically it. And then what do? We have to copy this Groovy script back into our console, into our script console, and try to run this. But before we run it, we will need to be listening on the port that we specify, which is port 777. So what do we need to do? So I'll just create another pane, and I'll call this pane shells. So all the reverse shell that we're going to get, this is where we're going to grab them from. So we'll have to set up netcat listener LVMP. So listening on port 777. So yes, we are listening on this port. So we come back and try to run this. If it works, we should get a callback. Okay. Yes, so yeah, we are in, so we were able to get a reverse shell, and that is it. So let's see, we can try to, so we see that this is, it looks like a Docker, where we've landed in a Docker container. So if we look at dev, so you see we have very few files, system file that we can actually interact with. So this shows that we are actually in a Docker container, and if, since this is our home directory, we can try to list what we have in our home directory to just confirm that we are in a Docker container. Okay. Yeah, so this looks like it, and then we can see that in our home directory we have the user.txt, so we can try to cut user.txt. So let's just go into our home directory by using cd, and then if we cut user.txt, so we have our user flag. So we can come back here, go up, and then we can say we're gonna save flags here. So our user flag, we have our user, and then our root flag, we're gonna get our root flag later. So this is we are in a Docker container. We can't really do much here. Sudo tag L, we cannot run the sudo command to check for sudo privileges, and since I've worked on this box before, I don't want us to go down into rabbit holes. I just want to make the video short, so I'll go straight into how we can get root. So for root, what we're gonna do is go back to the people that we have on the machine. Okay, and then we need to go and look for credentials, whether we have some saved credentials or stored credentials on the system. So, and on the credentials tab, we can see that we have a root user here, and then this particular root user, his credentials are saved on the Jenkins console. So if you go to update, and the credentials are here, so we have the user's SSH private keys concealed. So you can see we have a key here, so we have private key, which has been, we have access to it. For some reason this was supposed to be locked down, but it wasn't, so we have access to it. We can see it, but on the face we cannot really see it from here, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So we can try to actually inspect the HTML code. So if we go to inspect, and then we go to this particular tag, secret legend. Let's try to expand it. So if we expand, we see private key. So this is the input field, and then it has a name, private key, and then the value of the encrypted SSH private key. All right, so what we can do is we can try to double click to expand it. So this is the private key. All right, we copy this private key. So this private key is the root private key, so that's what we have to remember. So this is the root user, and then we are able to access the root private key by just modifying or editing the HTML elements. So when we come here, let's try to save this private key here. so we can copy it later. So this is the root private key, but this is not how SSH private keys look like. If you are familiar, they will have something at the top like a header and then something at the bottom. So this is probably encrypted, so we can't actually use this particular private key to log in. So what we need to do is to try and decrypt this private key to be able to use it to log into SSH, or to get an SSH session out of that. So what we need to do now, we go back and try to research how we can decrypt an SSH private key. So we can say decrypt SSH private key with Groovy, because we have a Groovy management console that we can use to run commands. So let's go back to our Groovy console, our Groovy script console. So we're trying to look for a Groovy script with functions that can decrypt private keys. So what comes at the top, we can have a look at it if it works. All right, so we have something like this. So it's like a hash password, and then so this is where you put the encrypted SSH key, and then I think this is the actual function that does the decryption. All right, so we can copy this out and into our notes, try to see if we need to modify this as well before we can use it. So this is it, and yeah, so I think this is just the function that we need. We don't need all that, so we just need to print this function. So okay, we can use it like that. Let's just not try to complicate it. I'm sure it should work. Let's go back to our script console. We pop this in, but we will now replace this with our private key, our encrypted SSH private key we managed to get. So we replace it here, and then we run. So if it's successful, it should decrypt this into a private key for us that we can use. Yes, so this is right. So we have the decrypted SSH private key. So we have it here. This is how SSH private keys actually look like if you use SSH keygen to create a public private key pair. This is how the private key mostly looks like. Okay, so I think I need to copy the whole thing, and now we can save our private key in a file. So let's save our private key in a file. So sublime. So I'll just say root priv.key. So this is going to be our root private key, and we should save it here, and this should be it. So this is our root private key. So what we now need to do is to use this private key to log in to SSH. So we say ssh.i, and then another identity, we want to use the root private key. That's our identity. Instead of using a password, we are using the identity key here, and then we specify the user. So root at the remote machine, which is 10.10.11.10. So if everything is right, they should be able to log us in as root. Okay, so fingerprint, so we say yes. Okay, so this is very important. So we have bad permissions. So every SSH private key will need some special permissions before it works. So we need to come and give it this permission. before. So root priv. So let's see. Now it should be able to work since we changed the permission of our private key. Yes, and that's it. We've been able to get root. So if we check who am I, we are root ID. So we should have root ID, and that's it. So now we need to locate our root flag, so we can just find we don't know where the root flag is saved, so we can try to locate it by using the find command. So name is root.txt. Mostly on HackTheBox, that's how they name their root flag files. And then ls, so we want to list the directory completely, and then the type is going to be a file, and we'll try to send all errors to dev null so that we don't see them. We don't want to see them. So let's see if we can locate our so our root flag is here at root.txt. So we copy, and then we should be able to cut that, and yeah, so we have our root flag here, and that should be it. So the machine is solved. So we go back to our nodes. So we've been able to have our roots and then our user flags. So when you come back to HackTheBox, you just need to pop in your flags. So you pop in your root flag here, your root flag here, and then your user flag here. So that's basically it. That's the end of the video. You can comment if you want further explanation into any part. I can make a separate video for that. Thank you so much for watching.